Hey everybody, Afro here. I just wanted to give a little shout out to the Geek Emporium. They're one of the newest subscribers that we have here on the Afro channel. They've been commenting a lot, so I just want to say thanks a lot, Geek Emporium, for your support, and I hope we can do something together someday. Collaboration, that would be great. It sounds like a lot of fun. I like your videos, and I have subscribed to your channel, so yeah. Thanks again for all the support. Now, going on, today we are doing, well, I am doing a review of Spider-Man Homecoming. Afro X, and you're watching YouTube. Here comes the good part.
My name is Afro X. My name is Afro X. No, I just want the checks. My name is Afro X. No, I don't need a hex. You should forget your ex and just watch Afro X. My name is Afro X. My name is Afro X. My name is Afro X. Excelsior, true believers. And here we have today a review of Spider-Man Homecoming. Hey, Afro Nation, Afro X here, and I'm about to do a review of Spider-Man Homecoming. The first part of the review is going to be non-spoiler, and the second part, I'll give out a warning, is going to be spoilers. So, non-spoiler review. First of all, go see the movie if you hadn't, or if you haven't, because it's about to leave theaters pretty much any minute now. But no, it'll be gone in a couple days, I think. But anyways, let's see. Movie was pretty good. The most I can really say about it without giving away any spoilers is it is heavily based on the comic books and the feel of the comic books. The more lighthearted feel of the comic books, where Spider-Man is more happy-go-lucky and less super serious about everything, like you should actually fear me, and more like, hey, I'm just trying to learn my powers because I'm just starting out. But yeah, in this movie, Spider-Man fights the Vulture, who is a kind of crime boss, just getting weaponry and really more trying to stick it to the people at the top. This movie really shows that a lot of people in the world still don't like the Avengers, and specifically Tony Stark / Iron Man. Even though they have saved the world a couple of times, there's still a bunch of backlash, and I liked it because this movie really looks at what happens when the fight's over. Who rebuilds? Who does the construction to rebuild the towers, the buildings? When Hulk smashes through a window, who replaces that window and cleans it? And this got a good look into the smaller effects of, well, the big devastating effects, but the smaller side of the Avengers. This gave you a good look into, like, hey, there are actually people in this city that you're currently destroying while fighting aliens. So anyways, from here on out, I'm just gonna say, spoiler alert, big spoiler alert right here. And I give a couple of seconds, just so anyone who wants to get out of the video now can. Alright, sounds good. So, this is the spoiler section of the review, starting off, I kind of took notes during the movie. I know you're not supposed to really have a phone on in a movie, but Silence phones, I suppose, are okay, especially if you're a viewer taking notes. At the beginning of the movie, Tom Holland, who's playing Peter Parker, says they're gonna call me, and it kind of sounds like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and he's just really excited that Tony Stark is on his side, trying to get him on the Avengers, and hasn't really seen um, what's up with that whole thing yet. Uh, Also, at the beginning of the movie, I really had to question, where is Mary Jane, because Peter Parker in this movie, his love interest is a girl named Liz. Um, and I noticed that a lot of the basic characters that we used to have now been changed to being played by stereotypically minority actors. Flash Thompson was Indian. Liz, the love interest, was black. I think maybe Ned had a little bit of Spanish in him. I don't know. Oh, also during the party sequence, in that red shirt and fedora, Ned looked exactly like Freddy Krueger, and I'm surprised nobody in the movie even mentioned it. But back to the subject at hand. Where's Mary Jane? You don't really find out where she is until more the end of the film. I think it was cool how they made very meta references in the movie. At one point, when Peter Parker and Ned are hiding from the bad guys that have just walked into the high school, Peter Parker runs off to go stop them, and Ned's standing there, and then the people in the chess club behind him are like, "What are you doing?" And I just like how it was a break from the action for a real moment, because in real life, if you're sneaking around a high school, even as people who go to the high school, people are going to ask what you're doing. Like, it's not like your life seems any more intense or important to them, but you just look weird doing that. So I love that break. That was kind of a fourth wall break, but not really, because it was still within the movie. It was a fourth wall within the fourth wall break. So, as I've said before, this movie was definitely designed for the lovers of the Spider-Man comics, because in the comics, the suit has so many more functions. In this movie, it has enhanced surveillance mode, it has interrogation mode, and one of the funny jokes in the movie, it has instant kill mode, which I wouldn't have even thought a Spider-Man suit could do, but it is made by Tony Stark, so there you go. We also got to see rapid-fire web balls in action. We got to see web bombs, taser webbing, a bunch of stuff. You know, in the comics, like, the webbing could do everything from create Spider-Man a life raft in water to, and not in canon, but in a kid's commercial, to actually being an edible substance, which is kind of creepy if you think about it. But the webbing in the suit are just amazing, and even like his little drone that can come out, one tiny little spider that can do surveillance and stuff like that. Oh, sorry, didn't get much sleep last night. Anyway, moving on. I was suspicious yet surprised, and very big spoiler here. So if you're still here and you don't want to see spoilers, definitely get out of the movie right now. Or get out of the video. Sorry. Go see the movie, get out of the video. I was suspicious yet surprised when it turns out that the Vulture is the dad of Liz, of the girl that Peter Parker is crushing on. Now, in that moment, Peter Parker's kind of at his point where he's giving up being Spider-Man, because after the Staten Island ferry thing, Tony Stark took his suit away. So he's just trying to live life normal, like he kind of tried to do in the Tobey Maguire movies in the middle of Spider-Man 2. Yes. And in that moment, I always have a sneaking suspicion in movies that something big is going to happen. That's crazy. So I thought he was going to open the door of the home of Liz and find the Vulture standing there, which, of course, he does, but it's not the Vulture in the regular sense. It is the guy who puts on the suit to become the Vulture. Now, yeah, I was expecting a kidnapping. Now, when the guy who's the Vulture is driving them to the homecoming dance, he's talking to Peter about Spider-Man, and he grabs onto the idea. He figures out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But what I loved and I thought was kind of creepy was that when they get to the green light, the light shines on his face just well enough when he says, "Yes, good old Spider-Man." That in that moment, he looked exactly like, what's his name? The guy who plays Norman Osborn in Willem Dafoe. He looks exactly like Willem Dafoe in that moment, and it just made me think that it was definitely a Green Goblin reference. I just felt so creeped out of that. I thought it was funny how a couple of things. I thought it was funny how on Flash's car the license plate says Flash Drive or Flash DRV. When Ned is caught doing surveillance, being the man in the chair for Peter, he says, "I'm looking at porn," and I laughed so hard because, like, what kid would actually look at porn in a school at night? There is a moment in there where Peter is fighting the Vulture, and the Vulture has his wing thing come around and chop all the support pillars of a building. And so the Vulture gets out of there, but Peter is trapped. Spider-Man is trapped under all the rubble. And he's laying there crying, yelling for help, thinks there's nothing he can do because the rubble's too heavy for him. And he looks down and sees half his face and half Spider-Man's face, which I think was a reference to one of the original Spider-Man movies. But then Tony Stark's voice comes back into his head and says, "Hey, if you were nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve to have it." And it is. I think that moment is a reference to the Spider-Man comic called The Final Chapter, where he follows Master Planner down underwater into his underwater base, and Master Planner blows a hole in the ceiling or something like that. Spider-Man gets really cocky and accidentally blows a hole in the ceiling, which lets a whole bunch of iron and a whole bunch of water in. And so in the comic, he's trapped under a whole bunch of iron, and he thinks he's going to die. Water is filling the chamber, and the pressure is really tough. And then he has a flashback of all the people who are important to him, and that he just really need to have that realization of the people who were important to him. And so he gets the strength to get back up. And like in the movie, he lifts the building rubble off of him and gets out. Now, it turns out that in the end of the movie, we find out that Michelle, the kind of weirdo basket case, the Molly Ringwald type character, turns out that she is MJ, but just people who really know her call her MJ. So then we find out, okay, she's going to be Mary Jane in the other movies, except her name's Michelle. So, Tony Stark is a dick. Throughout the entire movie, they just keep coming back to that Tony Stark is a real, and pardon my words here, but he's a real douchebag. Like, everything he does is just about himself, and he doesn't care about anybody else. And he was like that in Captain America Civil War 2, which I know that's his personality, I know that's how he is in the comics, but dang, like, watching it on the screen is just infuriating. Like, you just want to punch him. But you know, if you punched him, he'd come back 3 times harder. So, overall, I have to say, great movie, representing what the comic books really tried to stress. Peter Parker / Spider-Man is trying to prove himself. Neither him nor anyone else is really supposed to take him seriously at first. Like, we're looking at the original Spider-Man movies, The Amazing Spider-Man, and it's all like, hey, I'm Spider-Man, take me seriously because I can punch people and shoot webs. And in this movie, it was more like, hey, I'm just starting out, I'm not that confident, but I'm willing to try. That's what I loved. Before I say my final piece, I just want to say I did not like how all of Spider-Man's tech, besides the web shooters, came from Stark instead of him actually being super smart. This Peter had average textbook intelligence. He could put a few things together. He was in the decathlon, which is regular high school stuff, and the other kids seemed to be just about as smart as he was. But seemed like a lot of the help that he got in actually designing the stuff, except for the web shooters and the web fluid, actually came from Tony Stark, which was kind of a letdown. I wanted him to be really, really smart. In fact, I was kind of hoping that he wasn't in high school, but was a prodigy that was in college. My final piece that I'm going to say here about the movie is I have always hated Deus Ex Machina in movies, and this is not one. That's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm saying at all. I have always hated Deus Ex Machina movies. And if you don't know what Deus Ex Machina is, I encourage you to go and look back at either my video called So Simple It's Strange, my Doctor Strange reference, or my video called Dragon Machin Ball Z, which was a review of Dragon Ball Z Resurrection of Frieza. Anyways, Deus Ex Machina, I don't like those movies. This was a movie, or I always say that if the hero in a movie does not have to struggle, that he isn't really a hero. And I like that in this movie, in everything that Peter Parker did, absolutely everything, he had to struggle. Every fight, every battle, every trying out his suit, everything, he had to struggle. And that's what makes him such a relatable character, and that's what makes him a hero, because even though he was scared, even though there was a definite chance he might die, this is one of the first movies I've seen that I thought the superhero could possibly die in it. Even though there was a great chance that he might die, he still ran headfirst into danger, and not even headfirst sometimes. He had to figure stuff out. But he would just run in, and he knew he had to save the day, because he's like, if I don't do this, who else is going to? Like this, the superheroes at the top don't care. They're off doing other missions, being too busy for themselves. And he's just like, these are things that I have to do because I am here, because I am a superhero. That's what I've always loved about Spider-Man, and especially this movie, is that Spider-Man does what he does because he is what he is. Spider-Man saves the day because he's a superhero. No alternative motive, no, except in certain comic books where he gets mad at the villain or something like that, but it always backfires on him. But yeah, no ulterior motive, no anti-villain thing, where he has a dark side, except for dumb Spider-Man 3 with the whole Venom thing. Should have just been Eddie Brock from the beginning. Anyways, it's simple as that. He saves the day because he's a superhero. And that's it. Anyways, thanks for watching, YouTubers. Keep YouTubing, YouTubers. Don't fight the fro. And always remember to just flip it and stay legendary. Have a great day, YouTube. Bye-bye.